In this video on GigoSports TV, I, Ben Brown, break down Manchester United's 3-0 defeat to Manchester City, a result that brutally exposed the tactical weaknesses in Ruben Amorim's system. It wasn't just the scoreline that told the story, but the way City systematically dismantled United both in and out of possession. This was a tactical lesson delivered by Pep Guardiola's side, and it raises major questions about Amorim's approach in big games. From the start, Manchester City controlled the rhythm. United tried to press high, but the structure was flawed. Amorim's pressing triggers were unclear, leaving gaps in midfield that City's players exploited with ease. When you face a team like City, any hesitation or poor spacing is punished instantly, and that's exactly what we saw. United's first and second lines of pressure were bypassed easily. In the attacking phase, United were equally unconvincing. Amorim's philosophy relies on fluid movement and rotations, but against City, the players look static. The midfield failed to create angles for progression, and the wingers were often isolated. Forced into one-on-one situations they rarely won. City shut down passing lanes, cutting off supply to the forwards and forcing United into predictable. This lack of creativity, United never really threatened City's defensive block. Defensively, the problems were glaring. Every time United lost the ball, their rest defense collapsed. The fullbacks pushed to high without proper cover, and the midfield failed to drop in time. This left huge spaces in transition, which City ruthlessly exploited. Time and again, we saw Kevin De Bruyne and Phil Foden finding pockets between the lines, pulling United's defenders out of position and creating chaos. The third goal was a perfect example of United's structure disintegrating under pressure. What made the defeat even more concerning is how familiar these issues are. We've seen similar flaws in previous games: poor compactness, disorganized pressing, unpredictable attacking patterns. Against a team like Fulham, those weaknesses cost United points. Against Manchester City, they cost them their pride. The fragility of Amorim's system under elite pressure is now undeniable. At Sporting, his style thrived because of defensive discipline and compactness. But in the Premier League, against opponents of City's quality, United's lack of structural cohesion is brutally punished. This raises the question, is Amorim's philosophy adaptable enough for the English game? So, what must change going forward? Firstly, United need a clearer pressing structure. Amorim has to refine the triggers so that the press is compact and coordinated. Secondly, the midfield roles must be redefined. Without a strong defensive anchor, United will always look vulnerable in transition. Thirdly, attacking movement needs to be sharper. Players must provide more rotation and depth to break down organized defenses like City's. Let's analyze.
We started with this tactical analysis video. We started this game against Manchester City the same way we started many of our games this season, mainly the games against Fulham and Arsenal, i.e. we started well, but then we didn't end up getting the results that we probably deserved. Now, why were we so good against Manchester City in the first half, at least up until they were able to score that first goal? Well, a variety of reasons that I'm going to show you in this video. The first one is that, for some reason, Ruben Amorim is still hell-bent on pressing with this structure, you know, this pentagon shape with the two double pivots who are pressing quite high with the three forwards. But of course, I've highlighted in many of my previous videos, especially the video against Fulham, the importance of the wide centre-backs, in this case, Luke Shaw and Lenny Yoro, of stepping into the midfield. As you can see, they're acting as two defensive midfielders effectively ahead of the wing backs as well as the Licht, the central centre back. And so by doing this, they were able to squeeze out all of these spaces in between that pentagon shape and of course the defensive line, therefore making it extremely hard for the Manchester City players to be able to collect the ball and build up from the back. Another reason is that Rodri, who is of course a world-class player, did not look world-class in the first half. And so we were able, he's actually the main outlet for Manchester City when it comes to building up from the back. And the fact that he was not really in form in the beginning of the first half made it easier for us. Second reason, one of the reasons that I really love these modern hybrid central forwards, tall and fast, the likes of Højlund, Sesko, Gyökeres, etc., is that not only are they able to play as a target man and hold up the play and act as a target man for balls coming in from deep, but also they are quite fast in that they can really stretch the opposition defensive lines by making these runs in the shoulder of the last defender. And Sesko did a couple at least of these in the first half, which meant that the Manchester City defenders were always aware of his presence. Therefore, they would not take a lot of risks by pushing their defensive line high. That also made it easier for us in that it made Manchester City's press quite ineffective. And another reason is, of course, Ugarte, who I think he's been having, he's been quite criticized by Manchester United fans. I think, of course, his performances have not been the best, but I think that there is a player here. And when we talk about a destroyer, I don't think that there are many players who are as good a destroyer as Ugarte. And in this game, he definitely showed that. Now, let's talk about Manchester United on the ball. Okay, so again, same thing. Ruben Amorim prefers to have his central center-back pushing in these areas. Well, the reason for that is that, as you can see here, the Manchester City players are actually the ones pressing us in a pentagon shape. And de facto, it puts Matthijs de Ligt in the middle of all of these players. He's able to receive the ball, creating verticality. Credit to Bayindir right there, who probably is not good enough to be a shot stopper for Manchester United, but his ball playing ability is definitely good. He's shown it many times, and in this game also he was quite good. And then, of course, with De Ligt having this space here, even though the pass was a little bit overhit, we're able to create verticality towards Amad Diallo, just bypassing this defensive line from Manchester City. And this actually shows us what Ruben Amorim wants his team to do with the ball, which could also give us hints as to why he doesn't rate Kobbie Mainoo as much as someone like Erik ten Hag, for example. Here we can see Ruben Amorim ball on display, because what he likes to do is these triangles right here to bypass the opposition defensive line. So here you have this first line, create a triangle, create verticality, and play quick passes, in that he doesn't want his players to control the ball and be patient in the build-up, but play quick, incisive football. And here another triangle in order to bypass this defensive line with Mbemo right here, who's going to move into this pocket to receive the ball. And then now the third stage, so after bypassing this line, now it's about passing the ball wide towards Dorgu right there in order to attack the final line. So you can clearly see the building blocks of what Ruben Amorim wants to see from his team, both defensively, like I showed with the wide center backs pushing forward in order to squeeze those spaces, and with the ball as well. He doesn't want his players in the midfield to be patient with the ball. But of course, that ends up backfiring against us, because of course there is that goal that we've conceded, Haaland's third goal, with Maguire doing the same thing that I'm going to show De Ligt here doing. I did not want to include that sequence because I don't want to look at it again. And here De Ligt is going to be guilty of that, in that because Ruben Amorim encourages the players to play quick football from the back, sometimes it leaves us vulnerable. Right here, Bruno is in the right position, but Doku can quickly intercept that telegraphed pass, and then they were actually quite close to scoring another goal. Now, let's talk about Bruno Fernandes, because I think that it's an open secret here on Scarlet Report that I'm a huge Bruno Fernandes fan, okay? I mean, who wouldn't, right? But this season, I mean, he didn't start as well as, we're used to seeing Bruno Fernandes play for Manchester United, especially when it comes to his defensive duties. If you remember, I've highlighted that goal that was scored by Fulham. I think it was Smith Rowe, where Bruno Fernandes was tasked with marking him, and of course he didn't do his job properly. That's why we conceded. Well, same thing here with the Phil Foden goal. So here, this was after Phil Foden scored, and here, as you can see, Bruno is actually quite tight on Phil Foden right there, marking him personally, marking him tightly. Same thing here, and we were actually quite effective at winning the ball in the midfield with this strategy. But that was, just as is the case with many things related to Manchester United, too little, too late, because that was way after we actually conceded the goal, a goal that we should not have conceded, because Phil Foden right here should have been marked by Bruno, because again, this is also a structural issue with Ruben Amorim's system, in that you only have two midfielders. I think Bruno Fernandes himself said that it felt like the two midfielders that Manchester United had, Bruno and Ugarte, were playing against four Manchester City midfielders. They were able to overload the midfield. same way that Fulham played against us. So here Ugarte is going with Doku, but then Bruno has to be with Foden right here. There is absolutely no excuse to let Foden with this much space. And then of course, like, he's not tight with not one bit of
GigoSports TV, the world of the game, fast, strong, victory.